I'd now like to welcome to the stage last year's Corporate Leadership Award recipient representing Johnson & Johnson, their chairman and CEO, Alex Gorsky.
Wow. It's a pretty tough act to follow JR up here. You know, I always thought that Janet was somebody who could make us all blush and feel like we were pushing the edge of the envelope a little bit. But JR, you're doing a super job. Let's give him a big round of applause for kicking it up a notch. And I'd also be remiss before I get into a couple of other comments, just to make a few remarks about Ryan. You know, Ryan, seeing you up here tonight and reflecting back to the vision that your mother had, you know, there were several of us who were there many years ago when we were sitting around after far too many bottles of wine saying, well, what the hell can we do next with the Travis Manion Foundation? And she says, well, we should have this big dinner at the Union League, fill that sucker up, get all these kind of CEOs in there, and, you know, really do the right thing. We said, you know, you obviously had way too much to drink, Janet. And I know right now she is smiling up there with a big grin, and she could not be prouder, Ryan, of the job that you're doing and the way that you've really taken it to the next level. I mean, really, who would have thunk that you'd have, you know, the guy that won Dancing with the Stars, the, you know, head of the Veterans Administration, you know, Undersecretary of the Army and waiting, and all these other people here. She's just saying, see, Alex, I told you so. And so, Ryan, we're really proud of you, and thank you again for all that you do. But look, ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you, it's a real honor for me to be here tonight. And, you know, last year, I was able to be here representing Johnson & Johnson. It's hard to believe that a year's gone by. And when I was up here talking about J&J, for many of us who get a chance to work in large organizations, we know that whenever you receive these kind of awards, it's never about you. It's really about the companies that we have the honor and, frankly, the humility to represent. And that was certainly the case with me for Johnson & Johnson. And I'd be remiss, because I think what makes that come alive, just like it says, if not me, then who? I think every day at Johnson & Johnson, we've got about 130,000 people around the world, many of whom are sitting right here tonight, who are veterans who've been deployed multiple times. And on top of their regular day jobs, where they're already probably working way too long, they find the time, the energy, the effort, and the commitment to say, what else can I do? How else can I make a difference? And to me, that's really what it's all about. And that's who got the honor last year. And I'd just like to thank all of my J&J colleagues sitting up here front. And if you'd just allow me just one moment and give them another big round of applause for what they do. Okay, and as you saw in some of the earlier video, and I think it's one thing if a company manages to make a dinner and be a sponsor, but it's hard to do that with the Travis Manion Foundation, because the minute you get involved, it's like an infection. It takes you over. And I think in our case, we found out, we said, look, where could we make a difference in a very important area? And that's where Character Does Matter came in, and why we're so proud to be a sponsor. It was interesting, Bob McDonald and I were just having a conversation a few minutes ago, and one of the things we were talking about is, gosh, thank God we're not teenagers today. And you think about the world that they live in, where they're just inundated with social media and so many negative messages, so many bad examples, frankly. And when we saw this great example up here earlier of these, you know, 3 young men and women who are really, they're doing good, they're doing well, and, you know, we need more of that in this country. And to be able to be part of something like that, something that's been inspired by Ryan and the rest of the team, really making a difference where it counts at that age where they're so impressionable, and frankly, where you can make a huge difference on the vector for the rest of their life, is awesome. And so we're incredibly proud to be a part of that as well. And I want to give a big round of applause to the foundation for their continued work with Character Does Matter. So look, I feel incredibly honored because I think the Corporate Leadership Award is held in very high regard. And the board takes the mission very seriously and who we select. And I think if you look back on the recipients, it's really a list of top-tier benchmark companies. And I think the 2015 Corporate Leadership Award recipient is continuing to build on this great tradition and really trying to make a difference. And it's amazing if you spend time in the echo chamber between Philadelphia and Washington and New York, sometimes you think that there's a real issue with business in America, and there's certainly a lot of things that we can do better. But I'm a believer in my heart that when we do business right, when we do business with real corporate social responsibility, looking out for the bottom line, but frankly looking out for the line that holds us together as a society where we can continue to advance, we make an incredible difference. And that's exactly the kind of things that a company like the Carlyle Group does. I've had a chance to work with the Carlyle Group in a number of different ways, and to be here tonight honoring them and a leader who's a Naval Academy graduate, Navy veteran, Dan Akerson, and he's the vice chairman and special advisor to the board at the Carlyle Group, and he's been an advocate for growing veteran support for many, many years. And I've got to tell you, I think all of us who have had a chance and the honor to serve, we've got an obligation and a responsibility to make sure that we're bringing that to the workplace. And Dan is the kind of person, he's the kind of leader who does just that. And his commitment to veteran causes has helped really take the whole effort at the Carlyle Group to the next level and really allowed their employees to continue the advancement of that ethos, if not me, then who movement. So let's just take a look for a moment at the amazing work that Dan and the rest of his colleagues at the Carlyle Group are doing.
The Travis Manion Foundation is committed to ensuring that if not me, then who spirit thrives not only in individuals, but throughout corporations. Dan Akerson, a Navy officer veteran and the Carlyle Group's vice chairman and special advisor to the board, was inspired upon being introduced to the Travis Manion Foundation and its veteran support initiatives.
Those that come back injured, we have an obligation to take care of them and take care of their families, in my opinion. And that can be institutionalized by government action, complemented by private funding in such worthy causes as the Travis Manion Foundation.
The Carlyle Group has implemented a number of veterans-related events and programs.
We believe that you can do well and do good at the same time, and do good for others, where we take an active interest in our communities, not only in Washington, but where our portfolio companies work, where we really can extend ourselves in a positive sense within the community.
Dan teamed with other veterans at Carlyle to help colleagues better understand and appreciate the sacrifices made by our military families.
Knowing the Manion Foundation from prior experience, I invited Ryan Bork and Amy Looney to come down and give their story. I think we had 80 to 100 employees show up in this building alone to hear the story of the Travis Manion Foundation. If you think this is a worthwhile effort, you donate and the firm will match it. And that number came close to $150,000 for an afternoon visit, which I thought was illuminating, interesting, compelling, and the employees responded.
For their ongoing commitment to veteran initiatives, we honor the Carlyle Group and its employees as the Travis Manion Foundation's 2015 Corporate Leadership Award recipients.
Dan, it's interesting. I never saw that video before, and we didn't rehearse that do good, do well. And even though we went to different academies, I think a common bond that we have among all the academies in the service is an obligation to do good and do well. So it's really, I'm incredibly proud and honored to present the 2015 Travis Manion Foundation Corporate Leadership Award to the Carlyle Group, represented by Dan Akerson. Dan?
Alex. It's always easy to follow West Pointer. Now, you'd think I'm up here just to make a couple comments about the Army-Navy game, but all of you whoop-whoos out there, and you know who I'm talking to, whatever the number is, even up, because I don't ever take points. I don't give them either. I'll meet you afterwards, and we'll bet on the game tomorrow, because there was a lot of talk. Hugo, where are you? Yeah. Well, I know that. On a more serious note, on behalf of the employees and our portfolio companies around the world, particularly in this country, I'm humbled and very happy to accept this award for the Carlyle Group. I remember it was probably close to 5 years ago when I met Janet and Tom and Ryan and Amy, if you'll remember, on the pier at the Intrepid in New York, and I was stunned by what they said and how they articulated the mission of the Travis Manion Foundation. And because words do matter in our public discourse, the narrative that surrounds, if not me, who, is embodied in great institutions that represent the very best that this country has to offer. The Naval Academy, honor, courage, and commitment. West Point, duty, honor, country. These are descriptives that underpin such a worthy effort, and the results are shown in these young people who were up here earlier. When you think about it, it's about character, and unfortunately we see that in our public discourse of late, mainly around some of the election commentary. Character defines a nation, and what we've done here tonight is celebrate those that represent the very best that our nation has to offer. When I look around the room and I see so many people that I really, truly admire, General Paxton, you're the best the country has to offer. Jake Harriman, the best the country has to offer. And so many heroes here, some I've met, some I haven't. The Navy has another saying, those who stand and wait also serve. And I was very torn. It was hard for me to listen to all of the people who have lost loved ones in this post-9/11 era. You will stand and wait and carry on the traditions and the heritage of your lost loved ones to your children and your families, so your watch will not end. And it's a noble and worthy watch, an obligation you have, and you have my very deepest sympathies for the loss of your loved ones and those that are injured. The Travis Manion Foundation, though, takes a very sad event and turns it into a positive. They train our youth. They encourage them to be better than they think they can be. They help the wounded warriors come back. I mean, if you think about it, about 250,000 people exit the military a year. 250,000. And this transition back, in my time and during the post-Vietnam period, we weren't welcomed back. At least this generation of young people do honor the service, but it's not enough to simply say thank you for your service and then go on and it's just like, how you doing? I think it's really important that corporations, organizations, such as the Travis Manion Foundation, breach that gap between the uniform and the civilian world. And in doing so, you honor their service. You honor their commitment and their sacrifice. And it's only through that that we can really say thank you for your service. I was in a board meeting recently, and we were having a rather spirited conversation. There was one other veteran, and he said nothing. And I was a little strident, for those of you that know me, I can be that way. Rob Bender, where are you? Rob Bender was a plebe when I was first class at the Naval Academy. And his brother, Tom, is my classmate. Proud to say I know them both well and what a great family they represent. But when you think about What does a veteran want? What does he or she need? Well, they need that transition help and assistance. I think one of the most important things is to make sure they get jobs. In our boardroom, the conversation surrounded, well, we had the head of HR there, and she was telling about these programs for protected classes, women and minorities. And I says, stop. I says, you do know there are women and minority veterans getting out of the service. Why aren't we putting them as our primary focus in terms of making job offers and offering training to? And it was like a light went off. We need more veterans in our boardrooms. We need more veterans in our leadership positions across this nation to make sure that these young men and women that are coming back not only get jobs, which I think is critically important, but also that they are able to transition with some of the trauma that they've experienced. We saw that in Vietnam. I'm sure my dad and my uncles saw it in World War II, but they didn't know what it was. My dad was a veteran of 21 years in the Navy. We lived in Navy housing, and I can tell you as a young boy, I always wondered why on the Saturday afternoon, I mean, we didn't have much choice in television, it was 3 channels, but there were a lot of people that self-medicated with alcohol. You'd walk into a room on a Saturday, they'd be sitting there with a cigarette burning down to the end of their fingers and with a beer in their hand, and as a kid you just said, gee. Fortunately, my dad never drank. And, but I had an uncle that came back from Iwo Jima wounded. And he was troubled, but not in a mean way. He was just always quiet. And it dawned on me then, when I was getting out of the Navy in 1975, what was required was a helping hand to transition. I told someone earlier today, when I got out of the Navy, I sent out 200 resumes. My wife was pregnant. I went to work for Fortune 25. They wouldn't cover our medical expenses when she had a baby. You just weren't welcomed, and until you got in the company. And last story, I went to a management meeting after being there about 6 months, a year, I forget. And remember, in 1975, our corporate leadership were likely to be World War II and Korea veterans. And the CEO said, well, all the veterans stand up. This is 1975, 76. And I'll bet you well over half, probably 2/3 of the people there stood up. I did that at General Motors when I was CEO. In the union-dominated plants and whatnot, I would say probably 25 to 30%. In management ranks, less than 10%, which is not good. I don't think a democracy with a world responsibility that we have can outsource their military. It has to come from the rich, the poor, and the middle class. That's what it was done for many, many years. And although I think the military today is a better military than I served in, they're more highly motivated, they're more highly trained, and they're better led. So the work that the Travis Manion Foundation is the next leg in a veteran's life or their family's life. And it's a critically important job that you all do. And it's worth its weight in gold. So it's an honor to stand before this group tonight and be associated with such a fine organization. And on behalf of the entire Carlyle Group, I thank you very much.